Welcome back, everybody. This week we're going to do something completely new that we haven't done before on the channel. This week we're going to talk about my favorite guitar moments. I'm going to pick one from every song from Led Zeppelin 1, Led Zeppelin's debut album that came out in January of 1969. So I was inspired to do this because I just saw Becoming Led Zeppelin. It was just released this week, and fantastic. It's the story of the band. It takes you through the whole backstory, even when they were kids growing up, but really focuses on that sort of 1968, 69, 70 period where they formed as a band and recorded the first two albums and did a whole lot of touring and just really came into their own. Anyway, if you have not seen this movie, go see it. It's worth the price of admission for sure. Anyway, with this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to go down the track list on Led Zeppelin 1 by one, and I'm going to pick out one moment, one guitar moment that's a favorite for me right now. It changes over time, but right now, these are my favorite guitar moments. And I would be interested to know if you have favorite moments of your own on every one of these songs, and if they're the same or different, let me know in the comments what you think about that. By the way, some of these songs I've got full lessons on, so I'll have links to that up here and links in the description, so you can check those out if you're interested. All right, track number one, Good Times, Bad Times. So my favorite moment right now is when Jimmy Page launches into his guitar solo on this. There's this moment, it comes right at the 1 minute 34 second mark, and it's this one moment where he does this big old quick, initial run, and then he does a pull off, and I don't know if it's on accident or if it's on purpose, but he's like all the way up on the 12th, 14th fret, and he pulls off, and you hit this open G string just for a second, and then he continues the solo. Here's what I'm talking about. So track number two is Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. So we went from this hard rock song to this acoustic, awesome number. And my favorite part right now is this part where Jimmy does this arpeggio, this climbing arpeggio that I don't think he does in any other part of the song. And that's cool, but what's really got it for me is what's going on behind it. And I think what's going on behind is someone is taking a slide, I guess John Paul Jones maybe, and he's taking a slide on his bass guitar, and he's going from the low end all the way slowly, all the way up the neck. Probably has some echo on it and some extra reverb, but it builds into this crescendo underneath what Jimmy's doing until they launch into the next part of the song, and it's fantastic. Here, check it out. All right, third song is You Shook Me. This is another repurposed song by Led Zeppelin of a great blues great. And I think Jimmy used a flying V on this, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, at the end of the song, at 6:28, there's this great effect that happens, and Jimmy actually talks about it and refers to it in the movie. It's a reverse reverb effect. So he records his little guitar, records his guitar solo with reverb, and then he flips the tape around, and so what you hear, and he re-records it back with that backwards reverb now. So you've got the tail of the reverb sound that's now growing right up to the first note that launches it. So normally you have your note, and then your reverb sort of tails off after it, right? This is going backwards the other way. Anyway, here's my version of that. All right, and then what closes off side one, when we had sides of the album or cassette, is Dazed and Confused. So there's lots going on in Dazed and Confused, right? But right at the 4-minute, 4-second mark, it's after Jimmy's bow guitar solo. He does a ripping guitar solo. And there's a technique that he's using that gives this wild effect. And for years, I actually had no idea what was going on until maybe 10, 15 years ago. But what he's doing is he's playing behind the nut. There's no whammy bar on that Telecaster, but he gets like a whammy bar effect by reaching past the nut on the headstock of the guitar. He grabs that G string and he just wiggles it and bends the hell out of it and gets you this. All right, next song is Your Time Is Gonna Come. Again, in the days where we had albums and cassettes, this was the first song on that side. Great acoustic song. Now, after the first chorus, this comes at the 2-minute and 34-second mark. Super creative. He's playing through the chorus, and as he comes out of that chorus, he doesn't strum, he doesn't finger pick. What he does is he still frets all the chords, but he slaps it with his fingers. He's slapping it like a drum beat, either 8th or 16th notes, and he's fretting the chords. It gets a super cool effect, and you can even hear him do the little dun-dun-dun-dun. You can hear that little part on there underneath the tapping at the very end. If you listen real close, here you go. All right, then that song transitions into Black Mountain Side, another song that Jimmy repurposed from another artist. But beautiful piece there. I'm still learning it. And actually my favorite part right now is the very first thing you hear from it. It's this giant reverse picking all across the strings. And what's unique is the tuning, of course, on this song. The tuning is, well, it's like Dadgad, if you're familiar with that. He's got a number of songs in that tuning, very Celtic sounding. But this is Dadgad tuned down another half step. So it starts on C sharp instead of D. So it's whatever you would call that, not Dadgad. Anyway, it's the first thing that you hear, and here you go. All right, and after that song, it launches into Communication Breakdown, which is great speed rock, and we're back to electric again. And my favorite part on this song comes at the end of the guitar solo at the 1-minute 43-second mark. And he's gone through his guitar solo, and Robert's now start singing the next verse, but Jimmy's still playing under it, and you sort of, if you're not paying attention, maybe you're not catching what's going on there. But he does these unison bends that climb all the way up from the note that he starts with, sort of midway up the second string, and he's sort of going climbing all the way up to sort of the 17th fret, I believe, where he is. But you see a lot of that in Jimmy's playing in the sort of the Yardbirds and the first couple years of Led Zeppelin. That sort of seemed to go away. I don't really see it in his later playing, but this is a perfect example of that effect, and it builds to that crescendo. Check it out. All right, we're almost to the end. We got 2 more. The next song is I Can't Quit You, Baby. This is this great slow blues. He's got a super clean sound on his Telecaster, and there's a slapback echo. It sort of sounds like Red House, actually, from Jimi Hendrix, a little bit, reminiscent of that, anyway. So anyway, at the 3-minute 20-second mark, Jimmy is ripping through his guitar solo, and he's getting to the end, and he hits the turnaround chords, that A and the B flat. But the band isn't with him. So Jimmy's, I think, done it sort of a measure or a partial measure first, and then the band comes in after, and then he noodles a little more, and then they all come back into sync again. It doesn't matter. Somebody made a mistake, you could say, but it still rocks. It's one of my favorite moments, and here you go. And we're at the last song on Led Zeppelin 1. This is How Many More Times. So my favorite part on this comes at the 3:07 mark. And this is where Jimmy echoes back into, well, his friend Jeff Beck. Him and Jeff sort of co-wrote Beck's Bolero, which appeared on Jeff Beck's album Truth about, well, that earlier that year, I guess. So definitely fresh in Jimmy's mind. But yeah, so this all of a sudden in this part of How Many More Times, Jimmy sort of does this version of his own sort of a bolero thing. It's very, very reminiscent of Beck's playing on that other song. Jimmy probably has a right to do it because he was there and helped write it. But yeah, 3 minutes and 7 seconds, I'm calling it Jimmy's Bolero. Let's just call it that. Now, on the clip, I I can't play the actual riff because I'm going to get hit with copyright and it's going to limit distribution, and I'm not going to do any of that. So I made another version. So the melody on here is different than what's on the record, but I think it's sort of in the ballpark, gives the same vibe. You know the part I'm talking about anyway. Here you go. All right, well, that was my favorite guitar moments from Led Zeppelin 1, and I hope you learned something new today. If this is the kind of thing that you like and you haven't done so yet, please click subscribe. It helps me out. Ring the bell. The bell lets you know when I drop new content, which I do every single week. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this. Are there other moments that you love that weren't showing up here, but you want to let me know what those are? Please do. Let's hear it. And if it's another song you want me to do a lesson on, or another album like this you want me to break out and do favorite parts, let me know what that is too. But until next week, take care, everybody.